Can I wear these?
Yeah, but they ain't gonna work.
Do I look cool?
Yeah, real cool.
You should keep them on.
Huh?
You should keep them on.
I can't hear real well.
You can't hear anyways.
Just keep it on.
All right, episode 51.
Are we live?
7 o'clock. We are live.
Oh, let's see if I can't find this on the World Wide Web. Brandon, turn your volume down.
All right, episode 51. 7 o'clock.
You got volume over there?
We're live. Yeah.
I know. I'm trying to share it real
if you
quick
didn't
so everybody
notice.
can see it.
Thanks for hanging out. Extra 30 minutes with us tonight. Baseball season is upon us, so my little guy had his first practice tonight. So thank everyone for tuning in 30 minutes late, but we do have a special guest with us tonight. Is it? So I got asked this earlier. Is it Geddes or Geddes?
Geddes.
Okay.
You got it.
Geddes Brandon. Good evening, Jeff. Thanks for tuning in. Then you are technically, well, I don't want to say technically, you are the CEO. So you have the, I don't want to say dubious honor, but you have the honor of being the first CEO ever to sit with us
Oh,
at
man.
Rusty Hooks Live.
That's cool. That's real cool.
I mean,
And y'all have Shane Lineberger and other really
yeah, but
strong folks on every week.
CEO is a big title. That is Chief Engineering Officer. That's a big deal.
What are you engineering?
Not engineering anything.
Well,
I'm just teasing. What's CEO stand for?
Chief Executive
executive
There you go.
officer.
No, I'm excited to be here. It's like being back at home. You know, I from Gaffney, so I grew up fishing on Lake Wiley, and it's where I learned how to fish and fished a lot of night tournaments out here. Met David years ago, met you years ago. We've all fished against each other for years, and it's cool to be back home and cool to be talking about something we all love so much.
All right. Where'd you go to school?
Went to University of South Carolina.
I knew that. I just wanted to hear you say it.
Yeah, absolutely. Had the fishing team there.
Hey,
and
did you watch those baseball games this past week?
I did. That was awesome, wasn't it?
Yeah.
That Wes Clark's a good ball player.
He is. What was the outcome of those two games? The first one got rained out.
2 wins.
That's what I
Two
thought.
walk-offs, matter of fact.
Hey, I'm glad you win at something.
David, what kind of fan are you?
He don't follow
I'm a
sports.
Clemson football fan.
He didn't
and that's
know anything
it.
about college sports till he moved down here from the north.
Really, at the end of the day, they're all overpaid in my book, so
Oh man.
College athletes for everything?
they are now. Did you see last year they talked about they could get paid for their likeness?
So Geddes, so we're here to talk about the SCBFA, which is the South Carolina Boating and Fishing Association.
Boating Fishing Alliance.
Sorry, I said association. See, I'm throwing in engineering, trying to give you an engineering degree, and
No, I mean, look,
and
this is your show. We're just here, ready to go.
so obviously you're talking about the beginning. You didn't just launch and start there. You started in the fishing industry.
Oh, hang on a sec. I got to back you up. Geddes is not the first CEO.
He's not.
No.
Who?
Jody Wright.
Oh,
He's the CEO of Catcher
that's right. He is CEO, founder of the whole 9
Catcher
yards. Right?
Lures.
That's right.
Unfortunately, I did have to
Sorry, man.
bring that up.
I tried.
Sorry.
Jeff Mackey, I think the answer to that is 0.
In football, it is.
Now,
Do you know
baseball,
how many we have in fishing?
a couple.
That's right.
And baseball.
And they haven't had one since Patrick Walters left.
Well,
No. We had one the year after Patrick and I won.
Oh, did you?
So we won in 2015, and Hampton Anderson, Chris Blanchett won in 2016, and then Patrick and I came in second on Wilson Lake
There you go.
in 17.
whoa.
What's
Did you
up?
see that video?
No, I didn't.
We were all like super fast mode there.
Distorted.
Yeah, it was weird. So obviously with SCBFA starting here recently, you've had some history in the bass fishing industry.
Mm-hmm.
If I remember correctly, you were actually you started with bass.
Yep.
Right.
I started working with bass in 2015 or 2016. I think I was a junior in college, and you know their college program not only lays out a good way for you to be involved in fishing and go across the country and fish all these great lakes and represent schools like South Carolina and Clemson and all the other ones that have it now. You know, everybody's got a fishing team. but it also gives you an in and an outlet to work in the industry. And I think that's the cool thing that a lot of people may not see is the fact that there's so many high school fishing teams now, and there's so many college fishing teams now, that there are a lot of careers in the industry and in South Carolina. And that's one of the things with the Boating and Fishing Alliance we saw. We're a very large underrepresented industry at the State House and in Columbia, and just the awareness of the industry as a whole was just not there.
So in Bass, you were in there like communications, or you were kind of behind the scenes, right?
Yeah, so the first few years I was working out in the field. We'd be on boats every day and running bass track. And a lot of people don't realize when you're watching a fishing TV show, you feel like everybody's always catching fish. And fact of the matter, that's not true at all. So if you're not catching fish, you're not alone. The reason that you always see these cutaways to people catching fish left and right is because there's actually somebody in the background looking at a map and saying, all right, Shane Lineberger's on one side of the lake, and then Shane LaHue's on another side of the lake, and he's the one that's catching them. So that's where you go, and you're able to bounce around and get the cameras on the right people. So it was a great experience working for Bass. And then the last year I was there, I was their communications coordinator, and talked to local media a lot when we were doing the tournaments. So if you're at Lake Wiley, we'd be on the Charlotte news stations, Rock Hill news stations, that sort of thing. So we'd look for more non-traditional ways to tell people what bass fishing's all about. And I just I've always had a passion for that, and think it's sort of overlooked to see what the fishing industry can do for a community.
Sure. And you talked about us being unrepresented at the State House. I didn't realize how many I won't say grassroots, but headquarters or have sizable offices in South Carolina. So the biggest one being, I guess, probably Pure Fishing, right?
I would think that's probably correct. Berkeley, Ugly Stick, Abu Garcia, Penn. There's a huge representation there, and there's 23,000 jobs connected to the boating and fishing industry in South Carolina.
That's crazy.
It's worth over $5 billion with a B to our economy. And when you see things like the Sun Tanning Association, and then you have very formidable groups like the Manufacturers Association and the Medical Association, there's stuff out there for everything. And the lesson of that is if you're not formed together and you don't have a voice shooting in one direction, you don't have a seat at the table. And
right.
We realized that out of those 300 alliances that were registered to lobby and registered to get out and advocate for their respective industries, that the largest underrepresented sector of business was the boating and fishing community.
So $5 billion, that's a lot of money.
Yeah, well, heck yeah. And then, that's 725,000 fishing licenses a year, brings millions of dollars to our economy straight to DNR. DNR does a great job. We've been blessed to have their support since the beginning, and look forward to working with them and making sure that the people that started. And one positive thing, let me back up for a second. One very positive thing that came out of the coronavirus, and it's easy for us to look at all the negatives, but for the industry itself, how many people wanted to go outside and spend time outside with their family and spend time out on a boat? There were 8 to 12 million new anglers in the U.S., according to ASA and the Recreational Boating and Fishing Foundation, over COVID. So if you look at the 3 R's, as they call them in the fishing and hunting industry, recruitment, reactivation, and retainment, that's our job as an industry, where the lion's share of business for sport fishing tackle manufacturers is in South Carolina. How do we make it easiest for those 8 to 12 million new people across the United States to stay on the water, be able to have access, to be able to go fishing as much as they want to?
Sure. So you guys had a soft launch. I know you guys were at, I don't want to say soft launch. You had a launch. Mm-hmm. Was that 2 weeks ago? 3 weeks ago?
Yeah.
Was it 2 weeks ago? 2 weeks ago, yeah.
Okay.
So we started operations in January.
Okay.
And so that was sort of our soft launch. And then we had a press conference 2 Tuesdays ago at the governor's office, and Governor McMaster came out and endorsed us and supported us, and we had our board there. David's on our board. Appreciate his hard work. He and I talked about this vision, I don't know, maybe 2 years ago, maybe longer than that.
This has been ongoing. 4 years ago was our first conversation, It went dormant for 2 years, and all of a sudden, here we are.
I don't think we really knew where it was going to go 4 years ago. I think it was kind of the idea of we need something.
It was a pipe dream.
Yeah.
Well, when we talked about it, we're like, there's no way we're going to pull this off.
So how many people? And we'll go through some of the comments here. We typically talk about local tournaments and stuff, so we got some things popping up here. People want to know about what's wrong with my boat. Just so you know, Steve, it's just a coil pack. So
You're in good now.
I think so. That's the cheapest fix you can have on a boat, I believe. And I've unfortunately gotten so good at swapping them out. As soon as it went, I kind of knew what it was. But anyways,
Casey, I will not wave. I see you commenting. Bud Lights must be good tonight.
How many people I know? So I got my. I'm gonna make some people upset here, but I didn't bring it over here. I got my Buffin sticker for signing up already. I know you haven't sent them out yet, so thanks for bringing that for me.
Absolutely.
How many? What goes into a membership for SCBF? What's that do for?
So obviously, if you have any interest in the boating and fishing industry, period, and you have a business, whether that's a dealership, a marina, a manufacturer of any sort of related business, we have business partnerships, and those are available on the website. But the really cool thing about this, and what you have to understand about our industry that's really neat, is our industry is connected with the grassroots, unlike any other business. I mean, you look at, and if our folks can't go boating, they can't go fishing, our top folks, Abu Garcia, the Shimano's, the World's Yamaha, they're not going to be able to, they're not getting any money because the consumer's not using the product.
Right.
And so one thing that we saw the need for is a grassroots organization here in South Carolina that represents the grassroots. And the grassroots membership, that's $25. You get a free buff, sticker. We'll send those out shortly. But most importantly, you get signed up with the newsletter. And the newsletter is important because if there's an issue that comes up, or one thing I want to toy around with here, just being from around this area, the reciprocation of fishing licenses on Lake Wiley. I mean, all of us have had trouble with that, our whole adult lives, and it's just something that's kind of been an oversight, been overlooked. But say we bring that to the table and we make something like that happen, and I need to let everybody in the Lake Wiley area know, call your senator, call your House member, right. And send out a form letter to be sent to them. It's just one click and it's gone. So, that's the important part of it. Yeah, the knick-knack kind of giveaways are cool, and we're going to do things. I think you can come here and get a little discount. Maybe I'm throwing David on the spot, but you can.
I mean, we discussed it up front. I'm good with it.
So I mean, there's going to be all kinds of cool incentives, but the main thing is just staying informed and being a voice for all boaters and anglers in the industry to represent them.
Yeah, well, Ronnie Mueller said that the pontoon boat industry is definitely booming based on what he saw on Lake Murray this last weekend.
Hey, Ronnie, Bentley pontoons on board now. If you need a pontoon to stay in the game, you can get one.
Here's a question for you from Jeff Murray. He wants to know if the new association will help push grass in lakes or just some type of vegetation in general.
Well, I think there's a case to be made, Jeff, for native vegetation, and I think that there is a case to be made for other types of habitat enhancement. We are going to rely heavily on DNR and the science behind what they have figured out, or what they want to look further into. So if that's the aquatic plants, or if that's a stocking of fish, whatever that is, we're going to be a resource to DNR, and I think that's something that I can't overstate. Is we're here to be a resource for our industry, making sure that the lakes and the inshore stuff are taken care of, and so that's about the best I can answer that right now. And I think that as we grow and expand, obviously there are going to be opportunities that we can look into and be able to move further along with more specific things.
Sorry, we got I wasn't laughing at your answer there. We got
I've been here since 4 listening to
a
David,
brand
so
new brand new viewer on here today. So
I think he invented the wet noodle.
He said he invented the flying lure. completely derailed me. Sorry. So fishermen want to know where their money go a lot, right?
Mm-hmm.
So they ask a lot about licenses and things like that, and I think David touched on it a little bit last time. We didn't know how much actually goes to the offshore conservation. I say offshore, saltwater conservation. So this is all of us together, right?
It's all of us together. I think one important thing to note is obviously we're not going to exclude any sort of the angling community. I mean, I'm a big freshwater guy, so it's easy for me to see sort of narrowly, but there's just no way you can overlook that. I will tell you one interesting stat. About 80% of anglers are freshwater anglers, but only about 20% of the money that goes into the lobby in any given state or nationwide is from freshwater folks. So that creates a big lobby for an advocacy realm for the saltwater guys, and that's it's a good point to say, or a good time to say we're going to work hand in hand with CCA, and we're going to kind of just stay in our lane, and we're going to work on different things to enhance the industry.
So when you say lobby, you eat, sleep, drink this whole policy, political stuff. What does that mean to explain that to me?
In the most simple terms, it means as anglers we have the tendency to I've done it, we've all done it, we have our opinions, and we're very opinionated, and we know that there are things that we could change for the better and make Lake Wylie better, or make Lake Watery better, or Murray or Santee, Greenwood, whatever. We all think that we know how to implement these different policies, and we can't figure out why DNR won't do this or why the state just passed a law that we didn't like. And it's the whole idea of if we come together as a whole and we all shoot in one direction and we all sing off the same song sheet and we say, all right, this is where the industry needs to go and this is where the industry needs to head. If we all tug on the same rope, it's going to be a lot stronger than just one or two of us.
Sure.
Identifying an issue or a problem.
Well, it's a unified voice, right?
Exactly.
So we have power in numbers is basically what
That's
you're
exactly
saying as a
right.
lobby, right? Okay. So here's a question for you. It says, who runs biologists that runs the lakes for Lake Wylie and surrounding lakes? Who do you question and get answers from? So that's from Casey. He's asking who do we contact to be able to, I guess, talk to our biologists. That's
Casey. That's a good question. There are different freshwater biologists around our state, and obviously, this does fall under SCDNR, and we have an advisory member on our board that David's talked to a good bit, that we look to, I think, even bring on the show sometime and talk a little further about it. But there's great resources in our state, and if you have any specific things that you'd like to pass on to them, feel free to let David know, and we'll see what we can do.
okay. All right, and you can actually go to SCDNR's website and find out who the names are, right?
Absolutely.
I think you can actually contact them directly from there. All right, so how many? You got a pamphlet here and things like that.
Mm-hmm.
There's not much space left on that.
No,
so.
there's not. We've been blessed, and we have some great founding members, and some of the largest saltwater boat manufacturers in the country are here in South Carolina. You have a great bass boat company over in Newberry, Falcon Boats. I know that's becoming more popular here. Yamaha Outboards was our first sponsor, even though they're in Georgia.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, they're in Georgia, and we have other related businesses. We have dealers, but that's the one thing that everybody on this sheet, and if you want to see a full list of our partners, go to scbfa.com. But one thing on the sheet that everybody's fighting for and pushing for is access. Access is the number one thing that we as an industry, we as boaters and anglers, we got to get behind, because when there's car companies putting out cars, they're not worried about the roads being taken away, right?
Right.
When we're putting out boats or we're putting out more fishing tackle, if you come into Rusty Hooks and you grab, Abu Garcia rod and reel or Shimano, whatever that is, whatever South Carolina brand that you want to choose from, since they're all here now, you got to wonder when people are going to realize that the original conservationists are outdoors people and not the environmentalists that are constricting our rights to hunt and fish. And so that's the big thing. People don't realize that the hippies and Birkenstocks are not the conservationists, and it's the people that have enjoyed the outdoors for years and years that want to see it better for your children and David's children and the next generation. So that's that's one thing that all boils down to is access. And I think that as we grow as a society, if we don't have a voice for access, then our rights are going to be severely constricted.
Yeah. Well, I grew up. I remember this when I was a kid. The best places to go hunting and fishing were the ones you weren't allowed to go into. So
that's right.
Mr. P.O. Stead's place.
Yeah. The golf course ponds in the community I grew up in, they were untouched. I caught a lot of big bass out of that, and the marshals that patrolled that golf course, they eventually just gave up from running me off.
I tell you, one other thing that's a core thing that we want to work on here is we want to work on more competitive tax policy. We don't have to get in the weeds about it, but I know a lot of people that are listening. I know your property tax is high. I know that you're paying outboard titles and taxes, and we're only one of 8 or 9 states that still have that. And so there's other things that South Carolina's a great place to boat and fish, and it can be even better if we're able to influence these sort of policies.
Yeah. Yeah, we all like breaks on our taxes, right?
That's right. And if we pay taxes, we need to make sure it goes back to our resource.
Yeah, owning a boat in South Carolina is not a less expensive feat, is what I will call it.
No, not at all.
They come for you every year.
Absolutely.
All right, so here's a long one for you. Hold on, I'll read it and we'll paraphrase. You might be able to see it too. From Bill Sporney. More
There's a simple
fisheries.
reason for that.
One thing to remember: all my boats anywhere can only fish from bass legally from till June. Okay.
Bill, the simple answer to that is that would encapsulate restricted access. And so the question is do you want to take away access or do you want to be able to fish? New York, I can tell you from experience, is frozen over for 3 months out of the year for most part of it. That and when the ice leaves, those fish are well on their way to the spawn anyway. And typically when they open the season, it's about the time the bass are on the beds. So the real question is do you want to have access or do you want to restrict access when it comes down to shutting off far fishing for however many months a year?
I think you answered it great. I mean, I don't see a time that there will be fishing seasons in South Carolina. I know that happens with saltwater some, but
there is a fishing season for me. When I start hearing the big boats get cranked up, my boat goes in the garage and it stays.
There's a lot of boats out here in Lake Wiley, that's for sure.
Yeah, you guys that go out there and chase around 9 pounds in July when it's hot.
I always wondered, is that why? I've always wondered, because when you get out of this little circle that we're in Lake Wiley and Lake Norman area, you don't hear a lot of people fishing night tournaments. I wonder, is it because the traffic's so bad during the summer that people just started fishing at night and felt like it was a better way to do it?
I think it's because our lakes are so tough. That's the only time you get a bite.
The problem is you go fish out here at night anymore, and I mean, you think, okay, I'm gonna fish a Thursday nighter. The lake's still crowded.
That's right.
Okay, I'm gonna go fish a Friday nighter. We get stay out till 2. Guess what? 1 o'clock. It's still crowded. I cannot tell you how many instances that I've had on the water after 11 o'clock with people inebriated driving boats, and that have no business being there. Really and truly. And you call DNR and they're an hour and a half away, and they don't have the money to put an officer on the lake 24/7. So yeah, it's night fishing is was to beat traffic, but now there is no beating traffic.
And you say that. I've fished a couple of these night things, and there are guys that's all they do is fish at night.
Mm-hmm.
Literally, that's all they do. You'll see guys that show up and fish the Thursday nighters you're talking about, or just the night trails in general.
They just fish at
and
night.
you'll never see them any other time of the year during
So
the day.
I just saw Billy J. Terry. Conservation is great, but I got a question I want to ask just to see about the group. What is conservation? What is conservation to you guys?
Conservation's taking care of something and leaving it better than you found it, to me. And I think that conservation is putting more into the resource than you take. And I think that conservation can be confused with this day and age and the way that the political system's going. And that's another good thing. We don't have to get into the divisive politics. We don't have to get into stuff that tears people one direction or another. I mean, it's just
a question of conservation, because what we've been taught is, in tournaments, 5 fish, 5 alive, no dead fish, right? Okay. Well, if we practice that 24/7.
Are you asking? Look, I'm not a biologist, but are you asking? Is there a case outside of catch and release? Is that what
I'm just asking what conservation is.
Okay, so we're not getting in the weeds about it.
We're not going to go down the rabbit hole, but I'm just asking what is conservation, because conservation without purpose is bad.
Well, no, and that's what I'm saying. I think that we have to realize that our definition of conservation, like I said, leaving it better than we got it, being able to put more in the resource than we take from it. We have to realize that's different than not going on the resource at all, not going on the water at all, not being able to launch our boat, being able to crank our motors, and that's the sort of thing. Now, if you get into different limit sizes, and everything else,
then at that point you can get in the weeds, and believe me, I'm ready to go there.
Well, I know you are. I see you.
You know that.
This is about to get interesting.
That's all right.
We've had this conversation. This is almost not pre-rehearsed, but I think you and I have had these conversations multiple times.
Well, we got a sheriff on here. Tommy Ackright says if you print him a Rusty Hooks badge, he'll be the lake kids.
I got you covered. Yeah,
you have to come pick it up then.
That's right.
But there, I think that there is a case at some point to be able to understand. Does that mean that you need to throw in? I mean, because if you go to a pond and all there is 12 inches in it.
My point being is, people talk about conservation, what we've been taught. William Fraser's been on here. We've talked about conservation with bass, and Billy J. Terry, just catch and eat is fine, catch and waste is not. At what point do you realize that maybe you got to take something to make something?
That's a good way to put it. I'm not a biologist, so I'm going to
refrain from answering that. And again, I'm just posing a hypothetical question. I'm not saying we need to go out here Lake Wiley and kill them all, because if we kill too many more, we can start from scratch.
All right. Let me take this angle on it. All right, I've been blessed to fish across the United States. I've seen some great fishermen fish across the United States. You look at a place like Toledo Bend. You see people filleting 5, 6, 7 pounders. You look at sometimes when the A-rig first started at Lake Murray, you saw people laying them out on the ground, 6, 7 pounders. I mean, it's just like it's genetics, right? If you catch 5, 6, 7 pound fish, heck, at Lake Wiley, if you catch a 3 pound fish, probably should put it back. I mean, if you care about that, right?
Across the board, and this is where, and now I'm really going in dark, but DNR needs to educate people better on what to take, how to take, and when to take. Because I know there's a lot of guys out there that, not necessarily people that would be watching this podcast per se, but there's a lot of guys that will stick a fillet knife in a 5 or 6 pounder.
Oh, there's plenty of them.
And they don't think about what that does. But if they took 5 14 inchers, the damage isn't quite as bad, and they taste better too.
Yeah, and I mean, a lot of the fish that are harvested, right? We're talking generally about bass, right? And I mean, I've seen plenty of pictures of people, just here recently. I mean, people eat bass, and I mean, you get a 5 fish limit, and you can eat the crap out of them, right? Crappie are or crappie, whatever you want, depending on where you're from in the world. Crappie, where we are. Those get targeted like crazy and eaten too, and stripers, big time. I know a lot of people target stripers to eat them, but those suckers are stocked every year too, right?
Yeah.
So there's a stocking program to again conserve that species of fish. And we've talked about stocking programs on here. I know that has nothing to do with you, but again, conservation wise, to me, I think you define it about perfectly, and you got some people on here agreeing with you. But I mean, I hate to say it, but that's kind of the way I was raised, right?
Yeah.
I mean, if you tear off a bunch of line, you
pick
it up and you throw it in the trash can, and you don't throw used plastics in the water. And I mean, if you're fishing and you see something floating, you pick it up and throw it in your trash can, and you just do what you're supposed to. Well, I say what you're supposed to do.
Common sense is not so common anymore.
Well, I mean, conservation isn't.
It's not always about the fish,
but it's not a hard
we got to
thing
think
to
about
do
clean
either,
water.
Right? Yeah,
we got to. I mean, and if you look at the history of and now we're getting, and I'm not specifically focusing this on bass fishing, but for these purposes, you look at what BASS has done for our sport. You look back at Ray Scott. You look back at the history of when catch and release was implemented. You look at when the Clean Water Act was passed. And one thing that y'all might not realize, but if you're an angler and you come buy something at David's shop, the industry that you bought it from is paying something called excise tax. What an excise tax is it goes straight to the fisheries. It goes straight to more ramps. It goes straight to upkeep of the ramps. And so these industry partners within the state, Abu Garcia, Shimano, Luz and Strike King, and now Zepco. You look at all this, and Z-Man, you look at all these great companies that are in our state, and they're doing more for this country than they are just for our state. And I think that's a cool thing to realize.
Now, the flip side to that is we do have all these manufacturers here now, and the excise tax, if I'm not mistaken, is not broken up based off of where you're from. It's kind of a blanket across the board number, correct?
So if I'm not mistaken, it is broken down by the amount of people. So it should be distributed per capita, right?
Yeah.
So
in other words, South Carolina's paying a lot in because of who's here, but South Carolina's not getting the bulk back because of the size of the state.
I mean, I don't know if I would go that far with it. It would be good to look at the numbers as a whole.
Yeah.
To see, but I think it's important to realize anytime you buy gear, outdoor sporting goods gear, it's going towards our fisheries. It's going towards, public land management with hunting. There's two different acts that were put in back in the early 70s or 80s that, handle that for us and make sure that there is some conservation going back into it. So that's. You're right, though. I mean, any time that we can have more of a seat at the table to understand where that money's being spent, it's sort of our right to know,
Yeah, absolutely. And that's, I mean, you've seen some of the things we get on about on here. That's what everybody wants to know is where the paper trail of money's going. You did have some opinions on here that I think has some things that need to be worked on.
Well, and hey, look, that's the reason. I'll say it again. I know there's a few viewers on here now. Go to our website, scbfa.com. Join us. And $25. We'll send you a sticker and a buff.
It's right there if you want to get it and get it.
We'll send you a nice buff and a sticker. But the main thing is we want you signed up on the newsletter so you can keep up with this stuff. I mean, we have.
That's what I was going to ask you. How can people get a hold of you? Newsletter, those types of things.
scbfa.com. That's right. And just sign up and we'll put you on there. But I mean, there's 30 some odd, pieces of legislation and laws that are trying to be enacted that impact all of us. I mean, there's going to be a boater safety education course that's going to be up probably in the next 2 or 3 weeks. And, it'll be enacted. Anybody that's born after 2006. And, we're we're obviously going to always be supportive of boater education, and if you're out on the lake, you should know how to drive a boat. And I know many of the avid anglers and boaters that are listening feel that same way.
Yeah, absolutely. Funny story, but in 8th grade, we were required to take hunter education and boating safety in our gym class, PE.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
And see, that'd be cool to bring back. Thank you, Joey. I appreciate it. Sabaga's on here.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I know y'all about found him a title sponsor a couple weeks ago, didn't you?
Well, almost.
Oh, yeah, we're still working on that.
Sabaga, I'll try to work on him for you.
Sabaga's down in Florida, running out of water. It looks like
I was going to say,
catching alligators.
what dingleberry goes to Florida without a case of water?
Jeff Murray. Jeff, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think Jeff's out of the Aiken area. Is that right?
Jeff Murray. Yeah, I think so.
So he's a
Greenwood area.
Okay. He's talking about ramp access is full, as many as it can hold. He's, obviously these are some things he's voicing. So we need more ramps and safety officers protecting our vehicles at the ramps.
There's been a rash of break-in of these ramps, hasn't there?
Hartwell, I think, is probably the worst.
That's terrible. I saw Michael Neal was at Lake Murray for.
Yeah, that was at the
MLF.
hotel. That wasn't even at the ramp.
Yeah, I know. That's just,
A lot of comments on here about slot limits.
you know what's cool though. Backing up for a second, one positive thing you'll see, and we all know it's messed up, but when Michael's truck got broken into, all of Columbia, all the anglers down there are sharing it. If you see graphs for sale for next to nothing, make sure you report them. I think it's cool to see the silver lining in some of it, that the industry as a whole, when us folks that fish and boat, we always come together for stuff like that, and I think that, obviously need to keep an eye on things like that happening. But, and going to your point about slot limits, I don't know that that's our place as an organization to define. Now, when, if the bulk of the anglers would support a slot limit, I'm not personally aware if are there any slot limits on South Carolina lakes. I know there are in Texas. I know there are in other places.
The only one isn't there a slot limit on Sharon Harris?
North Carolina, yeah.
Yeah, but that's North Carolina.
But
I think that's just that lake, though, right?
It is just that lake. But, and again, slot limits are great if you have something to work with.
Yeah.
Right now, we got a bigger hurdle, at least locally.
Yeah, you're talking about just Lake Wiley.
At least locally, we got bigger hurdles than a slot limit. But you go to Murray, and Murray would be a good candidate for a slot limit.
Yeah.
You go to Watery, and Watery might be a good candidate. I mean, there's some research that could be done by DNR with the proper funding to make that happen.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that there's a lot of educational things that we can do with this organization. The education of how to protect and grow our fisheries, the quality of our fisheries, the cleanliness of our fisheries, picking up trash. It's Brandon said earlier. Pick up your line. Get stuff. Have some pride in your fisheries, man. Have some pride in your waterways, and just make sure you're being good stewards of the outdoors and picking up and just doing simple stuff. You don't realize when you do stuff like that how much it really adds all together. But guys, I mean, y'all might not feel like you can do a ton, and this is gonna sound like a political campaign pitch. But look here, I mean, if there's 40 companies on the back of here, if all of y'all joined today, I mean, it would be a tremendous help in making these goals and the interest that we have in this industry easier, and so if you want to join today, go to scbfa.com.
Yeah, we'll put the website on here in a second. We can pin it at the top. Byron, I do know that there's striper stock because they can't naturally spawn in most of our lakes.
That's right.
That's actually funny though, because there's an awesome documentary about Santee Cooper.
I've seen that.
Have you ever seen it?
Yeah, yeah.
It's so cool. they actually landlocked them there on accident, and that's where everybody was coming to catch them. Because before being from the salt, that's where they live, right?
Mm-hmm.
But they come into the freshwater fisheries, run up the rivers to spawn, and they just so happened to landlock them there at Santee, and people started coming from all over the country just to fish for them.
And then that turned into sort of a revenue stream for our DNR and others because they farmed that stuff out now.
Yeah.
Because it was like a genetic deal where they ended up doing it. Casey, I see your comment about the 725,000
He
fishing
can't do
licenses.
math really. He really can't do math that well. Because that's only $7.2 million to work with to run DNR offices for the whole state.
Oh,
So-
he's just asking where it goes. I mean,
Yeah.
all of look. And this is my thing. If you're listening and maybe you don't fish, but you enjoy the waterways, go buy a fishing license. Go buy a duck stamp. Go buy whatever. Put money back into our resources. And if you hadn't bought your fishing license this year, this is your reminder to go buy your fishing license. And that's the thing we got to understand is we're all in this together. It's all stuff that we share. So if you enjoy the water in any way, go buy a fishing license. More money goes into our DNR, and more money goes into our natural resources.
Ronnie Wilson, it's easy to explain. Gunnersville is a mecca, or was a mecca. Tennessee puts a lot of money into Gunnersville. Alabama puts a lot of money into Gunnersville. Anything on Tennessee River gets a lot of money put back into it because those states truly see the benefit in their resources and how much revenue the states make off of each one of them. And Gunnersville, as of last year, I heard it was on a decline a little bit. I mean, everything's cyclical in fishing.
I mean, but is it a decline, or is it people are getting better at electronics, or people are people being able to use a front facing sonar and pick fish off out deep a lot better? Or, I mean, what is it?
I think there's a lot of factors that contribute to a decline.
I can tell you right now, the fish that I see on my front facing sonar, they just must see my jerkbait too much, because when I throw it through them, they go and they just disappear.
I see a few comments on here about with motor safety. We need to back your boat in class.
You do. I'm telling you, if you came up here and sat at the boat ramp with a lounge chair and a sign that says "I'll back in for $5," I promise you'd make.
I'll give you
a
one
bunch
more
of
thing
money.
too. You need to teach ramp etiquette. Don't back your giant fountain boat in at a two shooter ramp and have your wife or your kid
And if it's
stand
at night,
there with the rope and block the whole ramp.
if it's at night, turn your lights off.
And I was gonna say, all you dingleberries that fish bass tournaments, turn your lights off in the morning when you back your boat in.
But that's something that I feel like this organization. I'm not gonna sit here to say we can teach everybody how to back in a boat, but we can use the assets we have out there. I mean, we have a great
Let me
professional
tell you what we
angling
need
community.
to do, Geddes. We
What's
need to
that?
go take a video, make a video, a how-to video, and post it on the website.
I like it. So that's what y'all heard what David's volunteered for.
Teach people how to use their mirrors.
But I think that we got to look at that's not necessarily something that we want the state to legislate.
Well, look here. I'll do the video right now. Everybody drives the hand up here, right? It's your steering wheel. You put it up here. When you're backing a boat, if you take your hand and you put it at the bottom of the steering wheel, whichever way you turn your hand is the way the boat's going to go.
That's true.
There you go.
Well, we don't even need to do a video.
I mean, that's how I was taught 20 years ago. Before I think I could back a boat or a trailer before I was even legally allowed to drive.
I can't say
Let
that.
me-
I can't say that I didn't back the boat a few times before the age of 15 myself.
Yeah, of course. That was my deal when I was a kid. You back the boat and park the trailer.
That's right.
Yeah. Yep.
Well, let me ask y'all this: what can an organization, in y'all's opinion, like this? Because I've seen some comments in North Carolina, Georgia, saying just over the past 2 weeks that we've set this thing up and we're moving forward. That more places need something like this. What can we do as an industry? And David, from your perspective in particular, getting on board at the beginning and being at that first interest meeting, what can an organization like this do for our industry?
In what respect?
It can be a very broad respect.
Realistically, the opportunities, and I think I told you this in the beginning, opportunities really are endless with what has been created. I mean, from the individual side, the things that if we stay in tune with what our anglers want, with a voice, listening, hearing, and then taking the organization and going and making attempts to make some of those wants, so to speak, happen. Because I think a lot of guys don't. I don't know that they realize the possibilities when you have 725,000 voices rolled in together when it comes to fishing licenses. Now, as far as the business side of it, taxes, it all comes down to we're an industry that is overlooked nationwide, and we're not going to be overlooked in South Carolina anymore. So truthfully, the opportunities are endless, as long as everybody uses it correctly.
Well, I was going to say, so we've talked about this with Fraser on here a couple of times, and he talked about stocking and grass and things like that, right? And we were talking specifically around the Lake Norman program with the F1s, and I mean, so you got to give those guys whatever you agree upon or whatever you don't. And I know we're South Carolina tonight, but those guys got a unified front. They identified a single individual, which in this case that's going to be you for this alliance, and they spoke in a greater voice through that one person. So they all got on board with one thing, and they pushed it forward. And that's something that I heard, and I haven't been around this industry for a long time, but I heard from Fraser and the biologists and the people that we talked to that's the first time that, and I'm talking about bass fishermen in general, have ever come together to talk in a unified voice to get something done. Every other time that it had happened, it was in a room, and it was basically you have people firing off their opinions, and that there might be 36 things that we need to work on, but we can't work on them all at once, right? Because I mean, that's a lot of money that we're talking about, okay? But there's a number on it, so that means it's limited funding, right?
That's right.
It is limited. So I think the biggest thing that this alliance, organization, whatever you want to call it, can do for us as anglers is be our unified front, okay? And in order to do that, I mean, you've seen some things on here already. I mean, you're going to get, you know the whole saying, right? Opinions are like buttholes. Everybody's got one, right?
And most of them stink.
And they all stink. But at the same time, if enough opinions keep hitting, like a poll, right, almost something like that, then I would say that you guys know what to voice for us, right?
Well,
and on top of that, feeding information back to us.
Yeah.
Right. So that's the biggest thing that I would like to see out of it is not only being able to voice a unified opinion, because I mean some of the things I think might not be right, right? But at the same time, getting feedback from what's going on at the state level, what's going on at the house, where the money's going, all those types of things. Because as fishermen, when we all fish, everybody on here fishes, we just question things about nature, right? I mean, if you fish a tournament and everybody's got 10 pounds and someone brings in 23, it's like, hey man, that guy really catch those fish on this? I mean, there's always questions about that stuff, right? Or, where's the fish off money go? I mean, all that type of stuff. That's just fishermen in general, right? So, being able to explain I don't want to say the behind the scenes stuff, but, just, it's almost like if I ask a question, I want to answer back. Right. So not only can you represent all of us, but we can understand what's going on too.
Yeah, for sure.
The other benefit to this organization and DNR being so heavily involved as well, I think the biggest problem DNR has is communication with anglers. As far as, yeah, they do their studies, they go out and shock fish, they get numbers, but they don't have a direct line of communication with anglers because a lot of anglers view DNR as the enemy. When the reality of it is we all work together, we all win.
Well, and I think a lot of that is because you don't ever see a DNR officer out here. You only see police. That's all that's out here.
Oh, you see officers in the
I
summertime.
understand that, but most of those are sheriff. It's not DNR. So when someone stops you at the Buster Boy Bridge,
it's more than likely a sheriff.
It's more than likely the sheriff, and they want to know if you've been drinking.
Yeah.
Right. So but it's hard to decouple those DNR versus sheriff or whatever, because they're both authoritative figures in the fishing world, right? So and we've talked about, there's been a couple comments on here already. We need more of that. We need more people stopping. I grew up on this lake, and I used to water ski and tube and all of it when I was a kid. But the rule was, if you wanted to go, get up early, and you go out there and you pick a small creek, and that's where we did it at. Now, the dock owners in there probably hated us because we're constantly throwing wake and just destroying their floating docks. But as soon as the lake got busy, the ski rope, tow rope comes in, and it wasn't that we couldn't do it. It was all about being safe, right?
Yeah.
Now you come out here in June and July and August during the day. You got kids being pulled. 6, 7. A tube with 5, 7-year-old kids on it going up down the main channel. And I can tell you right now, even you can't run this fast, but even a boat running 35 miles an hour, it's real hard to see a 7-year-old's head bobbing in the water if he falls off of a tube.
Yeah. Like I said, it goes back to boater education.
Absolutely.
It's important, and I think that there's no question that DNR should be funded better.
Yeah.
And
somebody said on here, and I don't know if this is true or not, but they said the average.
That's a true number.
Average salary of a DNR officer is $27,000.
Yeah,
I didn't know that.
I'm not sure with that, but I think that it's important to note that this organization will definitely work hand in hand with DNR to help them with, we're not coming out to try to cut funding or to cut the resources. We're looking to help DNR. We're looking to assist them. And it's easy for me as a tournament fisher and looking around at all of my friends that fish tournaments and everything else. I know we don't necessarily like when the ski boats are plowing through. We don't necessarily like, we think we own the lake. That's just a natural feeling.
Each group does.
Each group does it, correct. But we all have to share the water, and I know that's not a popular opinion, but there's got to be common sense boating laws that go across the board, and I think it's important that we as an industry fight for that and don't just set aside and let 46 senators down in Columbia make that opinion for us.
Sure.
I think it's important that there is some sort of industry input, because one thing I'll tell everybody on the podcast is South Carolina is a very unique state in the way that the legislature is set up. A lot of states, they just have their budget approved for DNR, and then they get to make their rules and regulations. In South Carolina, it actually has to go through the House and through the Senate and through different committees and all the stuff that can get down in the weeds to pass a law. And so that's the other part about this is South Carolina, it's not you contact me, let's look at something and it'll be done next week. It's a legislative process.
It's a 2-year process.
Yeah, it could be, and you hear people say it, it takes an act of Congress sometimes when it's like something hard to do with whatever you're working on. That's quite literally what DNR has to deal with here. So I think that, for us as an industry to realize that can be a positive, because there is room for input from the industry and not just a bureaucratic agency. No offense to anybody that works for the state, but, a lot of times they need some resource. They need some education from the industry on what to do. So I think that's a very important thing. And our industry in South Carolina, it's the most unique economic mixture of boating and fishing companies in the whole world. I mean, I say that with confidence. I would put it against most any other state. Now, I'm not saying we put out the most money, but I'm saying as far as looking at, because Florida's its own sandbar. I mean, it's just another place. But when you look at the way these fishing tackle manufacturers are here, the boat manufacturers are here, all the way down to our dealers, marinas, retailers, we just have, it's like 646 related businesses, and it's 20 plus thousand jobs. I mean, it's just a huge, huge business. And in order for that business to continue to grow, we got to take care of our resource. And I want to make South Carolina the stomping ground, the place, the proving ground for companies to implement and to put their opinion on pieces of laws and legislation that can be replicated in other states, and it forms sort of a circle that radiates outward, right? So if, Georgia likes it, then sure, go ahead. North Carolina likes, sure, go ahead. And then all of a sudden you got 3 states behind one policy. I mean, there's a lot of things that we got to realize. This isn't just about South Carolina. It's about our industry as a whole because of the people that we have here.
Well, and that's got to be exciting about it, right? I mean, you guys are pioneering a frontier that's never been done before.
And
right?
I hope so. I mean, we need everybody's help, and that's we're nonprofit, so that's the way it's run. It's run by your help. Sure. And so, it's a cool thing. I mean, we've been blessed. I mean, who would have thought that the governor was going to be at our press conference and talking about this industry, and so that, and the legislative leadership that's getting behind this thing and realizing that they do need input from the industry is it's very refreshing. I mean, heck, most of the meetings that we've had so far, people, the legislators just take a big breath and just, thank God we're not talking about taxes or talking about, whatever the other issues might be.
Little do they know that's coming next.
Well, I mean, but right now we're just talking. We're the fishing group, right? So we're going to talk about boats and fishing.
What's funny though is when I was in Columbia, which is not. I mean, I got ragged so bad when I got back to the store from being down there because I had slacks on.
Did they ask you if you had a court date?
They asked me what. I mean, yeah, it was a funeral, court date, what it was. But listening to some of the leadership talk, it's almost like now they have somewhere they can go to get an opinion.
Yeah.
Instead of, okay, we're writing these laws about this stuff and we don't know anything about them, truthfully. Those guys, most of them, I'm not going to say, they don't know.
I mean, now, you have some that absolutely know. But
they know, but they don't have enough people behind them to be able to comfortably go before the rest of the group and say, we got to do this.
I think that's a fair assessment.
And now, guess what? Your couple of names that do know and they're willing to go to battle now have some soldiers in the background.
Well, you're right. And the other thing about that, you look at there's a simple bill. There's a couple simple bills on here. We're not going to go through all these, but I will tell you about these two. That's because this is stuff you need to know. Like there's one that allows you to display your hunting and fishing license on your phone. I mean, that sounds just like common sense to us. And somebody like Representative Russell Ott that introduced that, and now it's going over to the Senate. He's sometimes the Lone Ranger on some of this stuff that sounds like common sense to us. Like, well, why hadn't it been done before? But to your point, when something low-hanging like this comes up and it's like, well, why aren't we doing that? It's easy for us to pick out when politicians aren't doing things right. But when there are a couple of things, there are certain things that go on, if we start moving forward with this reciprocation here, thank them. And win.
Hang on a second.
Win. Don't put me on the spot. But no, I mean for sure. But I'm just saying, like something simple like that, people don't realize that has to go through the legislative process, and that's a lot of not that anybody cares. It's a lot of legal time. It's a lot of time that goes into it to make stuff like that happen. So I mean, there's small stuff like that people need to hear from you, and just tell them thank you.
That'd be great. I can't tell you how many times I realize that my license is expired, and it's typically sometime in the fall when I decide to fish my first tournament. Because when it starts to get hot, I just don't do it. I usually buy it floating in the water, and then you got to wait 2 weeks for it to show up in the mail, right?
Yeah, that's right. I think one other thing to throw in there though is also the protection. When we talk about protection, Brandon Cobb made this point to me the other week. Of course, fished Bassmaster Elite Series, fished all across the country, and he said, if Kentucky or Tennessee had this sort of organization in place when the Asian carp started invading the Tennessee River,
it could have been stopped a lot faster.
It could have been stopped a lot faster. So the other thing about this is I want the industry should also see this as a safety net, one, for when things might fall through the cracks, whether it's invasive species, whatever that is. But also, once we pass some of these positive pieces of legislation, if we pass an outdoor sporting goods tax holiday where they can come in here and get stuff tax free on a certain weekend for fishing and boating stuff. If y'all don't think that there are people out there that want to strip that away from you once you get it, or if you don't think there are other agencies that are fighting for funding, or if there's other agencies that are other business organizations or environmentalists that want to constrict our rights and to take that, and I'm not trying to use that as scare tactics, it's just a fact of the matter is once you gain this sort of power, once you get these sort of positive things moving into place, you have to protect them. So that's something important to realize in this whole political world that we live in is, once we get a few cool things passed, we're going to have a target on our back and people are going to try to take it away from us.
Sure. Richard, I'd give you a shout out, but I don't know how to say your last name. You want to try to pronounce that?
I can.
Is it impotent?
Impotent?
Impotent.
He's definitely Cajun, it looks like.
Yeah.
The economic impact, though, looking at catcher lures here, making the fish habitat better, creating better economic impact. At one point, the 15 poorest counties in South Carolina were within 30 miles. Well, I mean, they're still there, but within 30 miles radius of a lake. You look at what the Alabama Bass Trail's done and how much money it brings to these communities. You look at what Brett Collins has done. Brett's been a pioneer in our state, and we don't even quite realize it, I don't think. He's really the CBCs, the cat trails. Not only are we having a place to put our money in and fish against our buddies, but we're bringing money to these communities, and I think that it's important for us to realize that.
But unfortunately, look at Santee.
Yeah, I mean,
Santee at one point in time was a lot more than it is now, as far as around the lake.
Yeah,
there's a lot of businesses gone because we didn't capitalize on that opportunity.
Yeah, I mean, it's a group effort. I think that there are the whole idea of this Bassonomics type policy where you're looking at the economic side of bass fishing. If we go there, spend a few extra bucks, support local businesses. And that's the other thing around this. We want this South Carolina growing field. I mean, if you have to choose between a big box store and a local tackle shop, then, go to the local tackle shop, tell them how much you appreciate their business and what they do for the community.
Chances are a local tackle shop will have what you need.
Well, it's reciprocal too, right? I mean, as a consumer, you got to feel wanted wherever you go, right?
That's right.
So if you go to a local tackle shop, you need to make sure that you're taken care of, right?
That's right. Anybody have any questions on here?
I haven't seen a whole bunch. I think there's a whole bunch of listening tonight. Joey, give us an update. What's the Harris chain?
Has anybody talked to Shane?
I talked to him yesterday.
Okay, I have not. I called him, but I haven't heard back from him. So
yeah, he was fishing when I talked to him yesterday. Joey, give us an update if you're still on here. Let us know how the Harris chain's going to go. What it's going to take to win. How about that? Oh, we do. Are you in our fantasy fishing group?
Not yet.
We need to get in it, man.
Let's do it.
Chris Carnes won this week.
He had inside information.
He squeaked out I can't remember who it was. He beat him by like 9 points or something like that.
Joey says tough. Week after the full moon, of course, it's gonna be tough because I think that'll be the tail end of the. I think that's the end of the spawn down there.
I have no idea. I'm not even going to begin to act like I know what goes on down there. When I go down there, it's all.
Zach, I'm not going to answer that. Zach, actually, right before I came up here, but I've been here all day.
He's nervous, man. He got all his notes and stuff out. You're most prepared I've ever seen anybody come in here.
Well, I mean, talking about issues like this, you better make sure you don't say the wrong thing.
Absolutely. Well, we appreciate how prepared you were to talk tonight.
Heck, you'll have people saying you said this, said that, but oh man. So hey, Jeff, if you set up a local club meeting, I'd be glad to do a Zoom or maybe come over there and see you guys. Randy, that's an interesting take. I have not heard that before. I don't think that the state uses as much pesticides and herbicides as they use grass carp. But
I think he's more talking about homeowners.
Oh, lakeside residents. Gotcha. I don't know. We have to look into that. I mean, look, and
well, here I'll give a shameless plug to my buddy then, because he's an exterminator. If you're worried about your pesticides, call Charlotte Pest Control, Charlotte Pest, because he uses all organic stuff.
Oh, really?
And it will not hurt your lake. John Weezy is his name. If you guys don't know him, he's a fast fisherman.
Do y'all think fish limits should be tweaked with the huge increase in fish from the past year?
We've talked about that a lot, especially when it's hot. I say we haven't talked about much on this show, but it gets talked a lot about in the community. When it gets hot, fish are really under stress. Post spawn, especially when the water gets hot. Everybody knows, the hotter water is, the less oxygen is in it. Going to 3 fish limits, those types of things. And again, that's back on a definition of conservation, right? Not killing fish,
I think
it's fish care.
That's somewhat self-policing, right? I don't know. One thing you got to realize is if you go and try to change something drastic without much science behind it, but maybe you have everyday application of whatever you're doing. I mean, it's easy for science to say one thing and when you're looking at the fish another.
Yeah.
But the group here that's gone to 3 fish during the summer, if people band together and do that kind of stuff, then
Who's gone to 3 fish?
There's been some 3 fish limits out
There was one fish Saturday.
Yeah.
Huh?
The XL Challenge tournament
XL,
trailer.
they
There are
did.
3
Yep,
fish
they
limits.
are 3 fish. That's right.
Putting all that aside, though, my point is if we as a group of anglers don't come together with the same opinion, you're going to have people very mad that, on both sides of the issue, just like anything else. So if there's something as a consensus as the anglers at Lake Wiley say, okay, we need to fish 3 fish, then, I mean, that's kind of your own prerogative, right? And if there's a unified voice that says, well, this is what we need, then you're able to make your case a lot better.
Yeah.
The problem is that's a 50-50 split.
Well,
I mean, it ultimately it's going to come down to a 50-50 split.
here's
If you bring up delayed mortality, I'm going to slap you.
no. Here's what I will say about that. The rules of every tournament are talked about at the very beginning of it.
That's right.
And if you don't like them,
Don't
you
fish
ain't
'em.
got to fish them.
That's right.
Hey, are you still doing the perch jerking?
No,
Tournaments
I will
out
be
here?
honest with you. You talk to cat fishermen, they're even having trouble finding perch out here. I mean, it's not. There's not. To hear them talk, there's not a mass population of perch like there were. Now, I mean, fishing deep in the summer, you still catch them, but going out there with a little spoon and catching 200 of them,
You don't do that anymore.
it's not that easy. Joey, that's never going to happen. There's too many people fighting for stripers than there are against them.
Joe, we can talk about that offline.
Is Lake Murray? I guess Lake Murray is probably what you consider your home lake.
Lake Wiley is my home lake,
Okay.
for sure. I could come out here and not fished out here for years and feel more comfortable out here than I do at Lake Murray. I mean, I like
When's
Lake
the last
Murray.
time you've been out here?
It's been a little while.
Okay,
I've heard
I'll
it's been real
guarantee you
bad.
that you wouldn't feel very comfortable after the first 3 hours of
I've
it.
heard it's been real bad, for sure.
We definitely need to go 3 fish limits. I feel pretty good if we had 3 fish limits on Lake Wiley right now.
I mean, look.
Get spots out of Greenwood. I wish we could get spots out of everywhere.
Look, all right, on the spot thing and on
The problem is it's too late.
well, but you know why it's too late? Because somebody thought it was a good idea to put the fish in the lake.
Somebody.
Well, I don't know who it was.
Oh.
Do you know who it was?
I mean, I don't know anything about who did it, but I know this. It's too late.
It's probably Tommy Ackroyd.
Without the support of your state agency, like in North Carolina, they've done it right with Norman, the F1's there. Vigilante stocking programs just aren't a real good idea.
The problem is I'm not arguing the fact that they haven't done it right as far as organizing and starting a stocking program, but at what point do you, and I've asked this to the biologist, I've asked this to other people, at what point do you chalk up what you have and manage what you got when it comes to spotted bass? Look at Norman, there's 0 nutrients in the water. It's a spotted bass mecca, so make it that. Look at Lanier. Look at how great Lanier is, and they manage what they got.
Well, I can tell you this, but look at the Asian carp stuff. When the whatever starts at the headwaters is going to get to the lakes downstream eventually. Period.
It is.
That's going to happen.
And
That's why they're so worried about it at Kentucky Lake, because at Gunnersville, Nickajack, Pickwick, all of them, they're coming.
watery's doomed. Although I don't know that spots can actually thrive in watery. I think there's still enough natural.
I don't know, man. Those things will thrive in a mud puddle.
You can't kill them suckers.
As far as killing them, I'm just talking habitat wise and what they use to spawn, and
They eat everything, anything.
they do. And
That's why they're so fun to catch.
But I think the point of it, though, is it's not good to take species unless you know what you're doing. Unless
no, it shouldn't be up to, hey, I think I know what I'm doing here, so I'm gonna load up a whole live well full of spots and carry them over here and put them in. I think it'll help it out. Nope, not a good idea.
You did get a pat on the back here, Giz.
Well,
Daniel Cook said you're doing a great job.
thank you, Daniel. Appreciate it.
Well, he didn't say great, he just said good, but I'll go ahead and upgrade that to great.
I appreciate it. Got some good listeners on here.
Joey. Can't keep catering to blue hairs down here. They need to learn how to catch native species. I agree, Jeremy. They are fun.
They're
But-
fun, but as far as moving them, I mean, Greenwood was a pretty good lake.
Man, Greenwood has toads in it. It still does, but
We're supposed to find out in the next week or two.
I hope that happens.
Are y'all doing these one-on-one live still?
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah, Shane and Joey are next. They're probably down there talking smack to each other on the other side, yelling at each other from either side of Lake Harris.
Which one?
Well, Lake Harris is a lake on the Harris
I
chain.
understand that, but they could be fishing one of multiple lakes.
I mean, Harris. It's called Lake
I
Harris.
know.
There's Harris, there's Griffin, I can't remember all of them. There's a ton of them. They're all connected by canals.
Hydrilla and elkgrass back in Murray. I
Yeah, I mean
suppose that
eelgrass
happened.
instead of elkgrass.
I think eelgrass is native.
It was definitely native in Santee.
Yeah, I think got a better possibility of eelgrass than we do hydrilla.
Hydrill is
Say
not going to happen. I mean, that's not even
I'm good
native
with
to the
eelgrass.
U.S.
I'm good with eelgrass everywhere. Find eelgrass, you whack them.
I think
that's
that-
that's what a little bit of crass fishing I know.
Anybody else have any questions? Or I mean, how could we give out a membership?
That's up to you, homie.
Well, I mean, this
You're
is
the boss,
This
man.
is your podcast.
You're the boss, man. I'm just here for entertainment
We can ask a
purposes.
trivia question.
What kind? Okay, let's do it.
Let's go about you.
What's her?
Oh wow,
Oh.
I got so many of those.
Oh wow. All right.
I've seen a lot of misspellings of your name. Let's see if you can spell your name right first.
All
I'm
they have
just
to do is
teasing.
look in the,
I'm
in
just
the
teasing.
description.
Yeah.
Now, if you give away a membership and you don't get your buff next week, don't be mad. I'll send it to you. What's our trivia question?
There's so many things I could do with this.
Come on.
You
now.
want to drive some traffic to your website?
Yeah, let's drive some traffic to the website.
All right. What is? How about? Is your mission
Hey,
statement on the website?
Do you have a real time track of memberships coming in?
Yeah.
You have access to the real time track?
Yeah.
All right, I'll tell you what we'll do. 10th person to sign up for SCBFA will get a membership for free. You can do that, right? Refund the money back to them?
Yeah, why not?
There you go.
All right. I don't see anybody yet.
Well, if we don't get 10, there's only 57 people on here right
Don't
now.
care. It's 57. That's 57 memberships. 57 potential memberships. 10th person gets a membership free. Money will be refunded to you.
I like that.
All right, you'll have to start watching because they might do it. It might be tomorrow. Because this goes up on all of our podcast players.
Oh, y'all have like Spotify and stuff like
Yes.
that?
Oh yeah,
This is fancy.
We're on Spotify, iTunes, Google.
We'll count Joey's because he's already a member.
Jason Land, I did not weigh my one whopping fish. I did have a fish. There's no point in weighing it. I fished to win Saturday and it backfired. I was about a week too early.
Let's see.
I don't know about you, but I fish to win every weekend.
I fished way ahead of things.
All right. Well, all right. So I can't. Never mind. I can't do that.
What?
I was gonna say to
This-
up the ante a little bit
This
since
is-
we're having some problems.
This is what I was going to say.
Let's hear it.
Your mission statement's on your website, right?
That's right.
Okay. And you hadn't said it one time tonight.
I have not said it completely.
Okay. The first person that can type the full SCBFA mission statement in the comments will get a free membership. How about that?
I like that. But then the 10th person, I mean, are you giving out gift cards or anything?
I'll tell you what. The 10th person, you tell me who it is. Yes, you tell me who it is.
Okay.
And I'll send them my buff and sticker.
Well, they're gonna get two then.
That's fine. Everybody's waiting on 9 people to sign up first. All right, mission statement. That's what we're doing. You good with that?
That's good.
I
Let's
like
do it.
my idea better.
Well, it's kind of like the 5th caller on the radio. You don't want to
Call too early?
Yeah.
Yeah. That's what Stan just said.
Oh man, Garvin, I don't have my harmonica. I did take a Southern blues class at Carolina.
All right. Everybody's gone dark because they're looking at the website now. Think I should make it easy on
No.
Mm,
them? SCBFA.com, right?
that's right.
SCBFA.com.
Come on, Stan.
There it is.
No, it was there.
Where'd it go?
There it is.
Here we
Jack
go.
Hartzell.
Jack Hartzell got it. Jack,
DM, send David a message with your address. We'll send your email address too.
congratulations, Jack. He was the quickest on the trigger. Pin that at the top. All right. So let's talk about some of these tournaments this past weekend.
What about?
Well, copy and paste on your friend. So Jason Land, Jason's on here. He had his tournament Saturday. I think it took.
Oh, I owe you lunch.
That's right.
I do owe you lunch.
That's right.
I'm a man of my word.
I think it took
12 pounds. 12 and some change.
12. I can't remember
He
what
posted
it was.
it already in
12.84.
here in the comments.
Jack, we'll send you a message when we're done here, and you can just reply to it. It'll come through Facebook Messenger.
Here, I'll send him this email.
Okay. Geddes gonna send you something. We fished Saturday. We fished 2 tournaments, so it took 8,
25.
25, because I had
No. 852.
803 with 4. We lost 6 fish on Saturday, including a 4-pounder.
I had 4 jig bites that I completely.
I don't know what the heck
I
happened.
mean, I've never had fish rock a jig like they were and just not be there.
Nah, that means they're getting ready to go. That means they're getting up there and getting ready to do their thing.
They're not. They're just getting there and they're not ready to do business yet.
Yep. Every fish we caught on treble hook baits, either crankbait or jerkbait. I know everybody thinks you can't catch them when the water's as dirty as it is, but there's pockets where they'll bite it.
What's the water temperature?
Anywhere from 51 to, at the end of the day, we saw 58 a couple places.
You must have been a Big Allison a little bit.
Yep, we went in there. Some of the backs of the creeks are that warm right now.
Yeah, I noticed in the back of Little Allison it was heating up quick.
But every fish that we caught on treble hook baits, which was every one of them, crankbait or jerkbait, I staked that back. Reed did catch one on a jig. Had the back treble hook and 1 hook. That 4-pounder I lost, he was hooked under the chin. So you know, as soon as that happens with 1 hook, when they turn their head, they're gone. So
yeah.
Sunday didn't fare any better. I think it took 12 pounds to win on Sunday, but that was with just 3 fish. I think it was 3 fish. Well, you weren't here. There was a 5-pound, 11-ounce spot weight out here on Sunday.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. Yeah,
It's old Matt Hayes, little river rat.
Yep.
So if anybody's wondering, run up the river for the next 2 weekends. They're biting up there.
I started up there Sunday and got locked in with the fog. I've never seen fog that thick before.
Do what?
Man, it was so foggy out here Sunday, so we took off
I
Sunday
know.
morning.
Well, when I got up,
And it wasn't bad at all.
Yeah,
It
when-
wasn't bad at all. I got the first spot, fished the first spot, fished 2 or 3 places, then all of a sudden, you turn, I couldn't even see the other side of the river. And it didn't blow out of here till like 11 o'clock.
I noticed at the house. I got up about 6:30, and it definitely got foggy around 8:30 or so.
Yeah, they're starting to show up at Santee. Ronnie Mueller's 32 pounds, 1 Fishers of Men. I know them suckers are rolling in.
Oh yeah.
Down
Ronnie,
there.
how many boats were in that tournament? They're gonna be spawning this weekend down at the Harris Chain, I'm sure.
It's over. It'll be the tail end of the full moon was this past weekend. It'll be the
There'll still be some on the bed.
Them suckers spawn for
They spawn
like
all the
6
time.
months down there.
starting in November.
Yeah,
I'm aware.
I'm sure there's plenty that are done, but they ain't all done.
I heard shed spawn may play a factor in that tournament down there.
If I could find one, that's what I'd be doing. I hate looking at fish on the bed and make me so daggone mad. A little over 40, 27 pounds was second.
That's strong.
I think Santee's blown out too. I'm pretty sure it's muddy. As much rain as we've gotten. What's the river look like when you ride over it?
I hadn't been
Yeah, been down
across
that
the
way.
river in Santee, no, not recently.
1284. There you go. That's what won Jason Land's tournament. 15 pounds won the high school tournament on Lake Norman. That's pretty good. I think there's some Sunday trail up there now. I can't remember if that's still going on or not. It obviously didn't take that much, and I've started to see the nighttime wildcats pop up everywhere up there now. So
Yep.
apparently they're biting up there already at night. 65 boats on Greenwood, 21 pound ones on that one on Saturday. Looks like the 1v1 might be.
When is it?
Waiting for Joey and Shane to get their schedules synced. We tried to do it 2 weeks ago, but that was when
Oh,
we were
weather.
like it rained like 30 days in a row or something like that.
Jeff said 19 pounds, won the club tournament. I think Hampton, Anderson, and
There's a cat tournament. down
yeah, I
there.
think they won last Sunday. Not yesterday, but Sunday before last. I think he had 21 or 22. Fishing's starting to get good.
What Chris Marshall have this week? Chris, you
Better.
still in here?
I wouldn't say it's good. Chris called me. He said we might have a wiring project.
Might.
Did it already happen?
No, it hadn't already happened. I got everything's in order. I'm waiting on him now.
Okay.
Why, you want to come over and help?
I think I've been recruited.
Okay.
Hey, Daryl just chimed in with the mission statement.
Sweet. We need to make that thing go viral, right?
Oh man.
Did you send Jeff a message?
Yeah, he's going to
Okay.
email me.
You mean Jack?
Or Jack, sorry.
Jack, be quick.
Yeah.
Jack be nimble, Jack be quick.
Hey, that's how they use copy paste. There you go.
Mm,
2, 6, and a 3. They held both of those up.
that's no bueno. Jody, you failed me. Chris Marshall, I'm disappointed.
Man, I forgot we had lunch on this past weekend. I'd have fished so much harder if I would have known that.
I don't think I could have fished any harder.
I'm not gonna lie, I was pretty distraught after the third one I lost.
I didn't ever lose any. I caught one fish on chatterbait, and I had 4 other jig bites that, I mean, when you're throwing a jig under stuff that's this deep in the back of a creek, you know it's like, come to Papa. Nope.
First bite I got on crankbait, just pushed it, and I was like, all right, there's one on there. Man, it just came off.
I even threw a milo for about, I don't know, an hour and a half, 2 hours, and couldn't even get a. I had one potential bite.
When I saw Jason Quinn and
John Paul.
John Paul show up, I thought they might have been on that thing.
Yep. Well, and Jason and I ran into each other on the water, and he may have thrown it. He may have been throwing it, but I can tell you this: he abandoned it.
Yeah.
At some point because we saw each other, and we happened to be fishing very similar.
Yeah,
At that point.
he stopped me in the parking lot. He said, "You got him?" I was like, "No, I don't have him."
Yeah, I know.
You got 4. He's like, "Man, I don't know where these things are," because that pretty much clued me into what I thought he might have done. So
I'll tell you where they're at. They're there, but they're not there, so to speak. They're close.
I don't know where they're at. It's been so long since I've gotten enough bites on this lake to get on a pattern. I've been reduced to fishing spots.
I should
now.
I should have taken a couple screenshots of my graph at a couple places.
I did figure out. I'll tell you this. Here is 100% truth. If you are a crappie fisherman, and when I mean crappie, I'm talking about the fish,
Yeah.
and you want to catch some crappie, if you go out here to the 3rd set of poles on the right-hand side of Buster Boyd Bridge, there are thousands of them suckers there right now.
You caught them on a jerkbait?
Well, my boat broke down on Sunday. After my hour-and-a-half troll back to the bridge, I had about 40 minutes left. I was catching crappie on an Alabama rig 2 at a time.
Oh boy.
Did you fry them up?
No. I knew. I thought if I could catch 5 fish, I had a chance to win, and I had 3.
Yeah.
There are. I was looking at them on Panoptics. Them things are in there. I thought they were perch at first. I was hoping they were bass. I knew better than that, but man, them things, they are in there tight. If I had crappie jigs, I would have been at least gonna have some fun.
Oh yeah.
They're in.
What are you doing tomorrow?
They are in 22 foot of water is where they are.
What are you doing tomorrow?
I'm working.
No.
Stan's got a message here.
Yeah, sure, no problem, Stan. So there is a benefit tournament Sunday for Roger Farr at Lake Murray State Park. Or, I'm sorry, Dreher Island State Park on Lake Murray. Stan, what are the hours on that? I guess it's just safe flight to 3 or See if we missed any more comments. So Seamus gonna get on here in the comments. Let us know how he's doing.
Anybody else have any questions? Anything?
Yeah. Fire your last minute questions off before we call it a night. Geddes still has to drive.
I do have to drive back to Columbia.
Safe.
Safe flight to 3. Registration is open for Jason Land's Baden tournament on 3/13.
There's already a pile of money in the fish off for that thing.
Yep. I think
Roger had cancer.
the cat tournament starts on Wiley for those of you that want to subject yourself to that.
If I didn't have a fish off this next weekend on Lake Wiley, I'd be done with this place. This has been the worst winter I've had, and I can't for as long as I can remember.
Well, hang tight. You might have one glimmer of hope this next weekend.
Goodness gracious.
So, the reciprocation of fishing license was right quick.
What about it?
We didn't talk very long about that. How,
You kept steering away from it. I'm
No,
ready to take that and grab that bull by the horns. You know that.
Well, let's talk about it.
Jack, I will email you. I'll email you back on the membership address here later on. But as far as fishing licenses, right? I mean, in most lakes across the country that are on borders reciprocate. North Carolina and Georgia reciprocate. Georgia
South
and
Carolina
South
and
Carolina
Georgia.
reciprocate. But for some reason, North Carolina and South Carolina don't reciprocate. And if any of you fish Wiley, which I'm sure you have, you know that one time you can be on North Carolina side, and then 5 minutes later you're on the South Carolina side, vice versa. There's a huge enforcement issue there, and people don't realize that's an issue, right? I mean, because it's not like a straight up and down border. It's zigzag the whole time.
Well, for the longest time, a lot of people thought it was Buster Boy Bridge.
Oh yeah,
But it's not. It's actually, once you get above the bridge, the line is literally right down the middle of the lake.
That's right.
Left hand side is South Carolina,
until
and
you
right
hit,
hand side is
until
North
you
Carolina.
hit Mills Creek, and
and
then
then
splits.
it's all North Carolina.
And I just think that if we could come together, that's the reason it's important for the individual members to come together and push for stuff like this. I think that it'd be easier to get out and fish and not have to worry about what side of the lake you're on. I mean, you got to know this lake very well to know where you are. Jeff, partner info, businesses wise, you can go to our website on scbfa.com and go to contact us. Send me a message there. It's individual membership, everyday fisherman, fisherwoman, boater. You can go on there and there's a join us button. And we've said this a couple times. We'll send you a buff sticker and we'll sign you up for the newsletter.
Yeah, this reciprocation thing, so it got me one time. And it was, it actually helped me, to be honest with you. Back when South Carolina fishing licenses, they expired, I think it was in June
1st.
June 1st. I was out here, we were crappie fishing.
It was June 30th.
Yeah, because they'd wait on you July 1st.
That's right.
Well, we were out here crappie fishing. That's what I grew up doing, was crappie fishing. And the DNR officer pulled up on me, and I was proud, right? I was 16 years old. I got my fishing license,
You're ready for
I'm
this
ready.
moment.
Yes, here we go. I pulled my wallet out and I hand my fishing license, and he looks at it and he goes, "Well, son, you got about 15 minutes to get across the border because this expires in 15 minutes." And I was like, that was the only time I've ever been checked out here. So I was at least able to go fishing again because we just had to drive up to North Carolina. But the whole reciprocation thing, I've traveled a little bit. I don't want to sound like I've been all over the U.S. to fish, but I mean, Pickwick, it's in 3 states.
Yeah, Mississippi, Tennessee, and Alabama.
As long as you got one license, you're good to go.
That's right. And that's the most simple thing reciprocation means. You have South Carolina, you can fish in North Carolina.
That's
Now,
right.
that doesn't mean that if you're in a completely North Carolina lake, you need to go get a North Carolina license. Same thing in South Carolina, you need a South Carolina license. But if it's on the border, you want to have one license. It just makes it a lot easier. But yeah, thank you, Jeff. Appreciate it.
I can tell you this for a fact. Every customer that I've had that I've posed a question to about the reciprocating licenses, people are more than willing to pay a little extra for their fishing license to have the coverage of both.
Yeah.
I don't think you're going to ever hear any pushback on that.
I've had a North Carolina and a South Carolina fishing license for 20 years.
Yeah.
I mean, I have to. I mean, not only that, but I fish. To be honest with you, I probably fish more North Carolina than I do in South Carolina. But Norman and High Rock and not Murray. Obviously, that's in South Carolina. Where's the CBC? Hickory.
Hickory.
Those, the whole yakking chain.
All right, guys, we can wrap this up.
I appreciate it.
Yeah.
It's fun.
Yeah, guys, thanks for coming hang out with us tonight.
Yeah, it's been a lot of fun.
So the easiest way to get a hold of you, scbfa.com.
Yeah, scbfa.com.
Contact us.
Yep, go to contact us or, email membership at scbfa.com. If you have some really pressing issues, just call the tackle shop up here.
I didn't realize you were on the board.
Yeah, he's a board member, man. He's like, technically, he's one of my 20-something bosses.
20-something bosses, huh? You
Is it
listening?
20? I thought it was 17.
See,
Do we add
Joey.
a couple? Do we add a
I
couple?
don't know, it's something like that.
Okay. Well, I never looked at it as I was partly his
Oh
boss.
gosh, I shouldn't have said that. Hey, I tell you what, if y'all have any real huge issues, just make sure you come to David about
You need to
it.
make sure and get with Jeff. Jeff wants you to get hooked
Jeff,
up with his club.
I will. I'll contact you. I still have your contact information. I'll get up with you.
All right, guys, we're going to wrap this thing up. Rusty Hooks Live, where our hooks may be rusty, but our points are always sharp. Thank you, Geddes. And if you do have pressing issues, you can come see me, and I'll be sure to bark up the tree for you. Geddes and I have a fairly decent working relationship.
That's right.
Good night.
Thank you.
See you guys.